What if I told you that having it all isn't about balance? It is about redefining what all means. And today we are diving into the life of a woman who shattered ceilings in education, authorship, and leadership while raising a family, running a STEAM franchise, and still finding time to crochet. Her secret? She doesn't believe in limits, only possibilities. So meet Tradara McLaurine, a force of nature, a three-time Indiana State University alumna, and a boundary-breaking motivational speaker, author, and educator who's redefining what it means to thrive in multiple roles. As a mother of two, plus one furry child, she mastered the art of juggling professional excellence and personal passion. With over 15 years in higher education, Tradara now leads career and academic advising at Indiana University in Indianapolis. But that's not all. She's a best selling children's author, a STEAM franchise owner, and a Delta Sigma Theta sorority member dedicated to uplifting her community. Oh, and she's here to declare that work life balance is a myth, and she's got the receipts to prove it. Today, Shadara will pull back the curtain on how she defies time, embraces therapy as a tool for growth, and why having a backup plan might be the key to fearless living. We will explore her change your shoes philosophy, unpack why life's journey is a work of art, messy brushstrokes and all, and discover how to turn societal limits into launching pads. If you've ever felt stuck, overwhelmed by balance, or wondered how to craft your own definition of success, this conversation is your wake up call. So let's break boundaries with Tradara McLaurine. Welcome, Tradara. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. That introduction was amazing. I don't know who you're talking about. That was awesome. Thank you.
We're talking about you and own it. This is basically 2 minutes of fame of what you have been building for so many years. And one of the things that a lot of us have issues with is to receive that,
Yeah.
to celebrate those successes. And probably that might be also one of the topics of today's conversation.
Mhm.
We as female leaders, female entrepreneurs, as women in general, how we own what we have done, what we have achieved, what we have manifested. So I'm super stoked to be here with you and
Yeah.
learn from you. And why do you consider yourself a boundary breaker?
Yeah, so I consider myself to be a boundary breaker primarily because I don't look at boundaries as a limit. I Boundaries can either be a couple of things. They are meant to either protect you from what's on the other side. However, I look at it as you can go around a boundary, you can go over a boundary. It's really up to you. So I don't look at that. I actually have a talk that I do that talks about gates and how we do look at that about protection and keeping someone away from it, but a key does exist. And so a lot of times I look at no as in just not now or not yet, and figuring out a way that I can navigate around that to get through that door. And even behind that door, whether it's something I wasn't supposed to go to, I find that out too. And there's learning in that, but you'll never know unless you try to knock it down. So I'm gonna try to knock it down first, rather than just look at it and say, "Oh, I'm not supposed to go there."
I like that. So you see yourself as a gatekeeper of different gates that you intentionally open or close or just peek a little depending on situation, on the color of the gate or the heaviness of the gate or whatever.
Definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
I like that because there's so many situational in our lives. There's so many that not now or not yet or maybe later that we do not bring as excuses, but as certain intentions in order, like you say, to keep harmony or to set certain boundaries, not to take up too much at the same time, to be able to navigate and prioritize whatever is appearing in life. I believe it's a great way not to be overwhelmed by
I agree.
everything that is coming our way, because this is what I see a lot of women experience, like overwhelm, because they do not put boundaries, they do not break boundaries. There's a lot to say about boundaries and how you deal with them, but it is about, like you say, protection, and on the other side, keeping possibilities and opportunities.
You're right, 100%.
Yeah. So how do you prioritize?
So I prioritize a lot by making sure I understand my values. I believe once you understand what your values are, it's easier for you to decide what you want to say yes to and what you want to say no to. And
Yeah.
I think that's the hard part where we struggle. We struggle when we don't know what to say yes to, what to say no to. So we either say yes to too much, and that's where we're feeling overwhelmed, or we are out of fear saying no to everything. So once I outlined what my values were and made sure I stayed in line with that, it was very helpful for me to decide what to say yes and no to. The best
Yeah.
example I can give to that is as being a working mom. My kids really do come first to me. I look at it as in they are mine forever or whatever, but I only have designated time with them for a little bit before they become adults and they're on their own. And I want to make sure that I'm cherishing all the time that I do have. So if there are certain events that will come up in their lives, such as if my son has a game, but I have a speaking opportunity at the same time, I'm going to say no to the speaking opportunity. I'm going to go to my son's game because it's important that he sees his supporters, he sees mom, he sees family in the stands, and my speaking opportunities will come back to me at another time. So those are one things that I try to do when I'm deciding what to say yes and no to when it comes to opportunities. I also say that has helped me as well when it comes down to the things that I do and how I combine it. So with the STEAM enrichment franchise that I have, the purpose of that was because I work in career services, I work in academic advising, and the studies show that there is limited representation of people of color in STEAM industries. So I thought, why not go into something like that and increase representation for kids that are coming behind me and the next generation? And that's the same thing with my books. Everything that I write is all about increasing representation and making sure that kids can see themselves in these future careers and jobs and endeavors.
Yeah. For people who are not familiar with STEAM, Tradara, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, art, and math.
Okay. And so what is it that you do in that franchise?
Yes, so we provide a lot of different STEAM services, whether that is through after school enrichment, summer camps, out of school camps, Girl Scout badging. We also work with corporate America and assistant living facilities when it comes to STEAM building. What sets us apart is that our organization is completely device free. So right now you'll see in our world when it comes down to incorporating technology in engineering, we rely heavily on devices in schools. We rely heavily on devices in our after school programs. With Challenge Island, we don't do that at all. So everything is completely device free, and we're allowing students to have their creative thinking and we're allowing them to problem solve without having to actually use a device to do it all. So it's hands-on learning. And with that, we incorporate that with our assisted living facilities as well as corporate America, because it is very interesting to see some adults get together and have to construct a roller coaster. And can you make this marble go through a roller coaster, go through a loopy loop and land in this cup? And just to see how they get together to work on their team working, how they test their hypotenuse, or are they able to try again? And we go through all those steps with every lesson that we do, or every challenge.
Tradara, when you were talking about this, I can just feel the energy going up, and I feel in your voice, I can hear in your voice how much this is a project that is very close to your heart.
Yeah.
So, why is it so important to you to do things like that?
It's important to me because as someone who was in school, I could not stand science. Science was intimidating to me. Math I got, but there is heavy. I see a lot of students that will say, I don't like math, or I'm intimidated by math. I'm intimidated by science. I even see that on the college level, they'll come in and avoid a major or a career based off of how much science and math that it has. So with this, I feel the earlier that we get to our students where they can actually see that this is obtainable and that they can do it and they don't have to rely heavy on a calculator, that when they get that first barrier or that first boundary, they realize that, no, this is something I've done before. So I want when that hard time comes that they think back to their enjoyable moments and part of Challenge Island, and they executed that challenge with their team and they were able to go through all of the STEAM building steps in order to make the outcome that they desired.
How does having two children yourself impact how you show up in the world and what projects you take on and what priorities you put?
Sure. So having two kids, I would say that's where it all started. My children they're definitely my inspiration. I always wanted to be an author, but I couldn't see myself doing it. Or I won't say that. I didn't major in it in college because I was told that's a starving artist. That's an industry that is like hitting the lottery to be successful in. And I would say I enjoyed writing for sport, but it was nothing that I was really passionate about. It wasn't until I had my children where I started to see different situations that they were encountering that I was guiding them through, where I realized, wait a minute, I can help other kids, not just my own, navigate through this. I can help other parents navigate this so that they don't feel alone in these situations. And then also having children, I started to pay attention to toys more. I started paying attention to movies more and books more. And I saw the lack of representation in those stories. And I want my kids to be able to look at toy, play with toys, look at movies, read books, and they can see themselves in that story. I want them to actually see that it was possible. So instead of waiting for someone else to fill that gap, I decided that I was going to fill that gap.
I love that. I love that. How did that go? Because it is about showing up, it is about coming out of a box, it is about bringing something that you created to the world in a pretty competitive setting and context. So, how do you build the courage and the confidence to do that?
It was hard. I would say that's something that I still kind of work with and struggle with at times because it's a business, no less, at the end of the day. It really is. And there is a money's game that's tied to it. So I had to take that out of it. And I was really focused on if I impacted one child, that was good enough for me. It was also the light in my kids' eyes. They are definitely proud. My third book was based off of a situation that my daughter was encountering, and she thinks that she should sign the book with me. So when I go on author visits, I should sign it too because it's about me. My son would, after that, he was like, you need to write a book about me and publish it. I have written a book about him as well, or something that he has encountered. I've written that. So just for them to even see that in writing and understand something that is bigger than today. Everything that I do, I'm not thinking about the present moment. I'm thinking about the future and that we do have the power to shape it. My story today has won awards, most definitely, but I'm thinking more about the legacy. Like, how will this impact later on? What impact will it have years beyond that I may never see or even witness or even know what the impact is? So I'm thinking about the future, not necessarily the present.
Yeah. So what's your advice for our audience to start initiatives like that? Because I know that I was there, you were there. I know people, women I work with were there. So certainly in our audience, there are people or women that feel like, okay, there's something I can do. There's something that I have to offer. There's something that I can bring to the world. But I don't know. It's so much. Like you say, it's business. There's money involved. There's so much competition. There's already fighting with how we want to bring it.
Yeah.
If we want to bring something to the world from a creative perspective, from a sharing perspective, from an inclusive perspective, from, like you say, representing underrepresented, whether it are children or girls, women or black women or whatever category of people that is underrepresented, there's so much hurdles
Yeah.
and so much complexity to bring it. So, based on your experience, or maybe just based on your ideas and your mindset, what can women do if they want to bring something to the world that they don't know how to start it because it's like too much hustle?
Yeah. Oh, it's a lot of hustle. I would say that My best advice for anyone that wants to start it is to just start it. This is more, this part I can just say for women, just looking at the history of women, we do a lot of things that we don't know how to do. Example, motherhood. I can just use that. I was raised by a mother. I've seen mothers, but I didn't know what I was doing until I became a mother. And even now, I don't, my kids are 9 and 12. I don't know what motherhood looks like to a teen. I don't know what motherhood looks like to an adult, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to start, right? It doesn't mean that I let that fear keep me stagnant in it and not moving forward. I think the best part is to figure out how to break our goals down into manageable chunks. When we do goal setting, a lot of times, and this will be, I'm just going to use weight. I don't mean it necessarily a bad thing, but let's say weight, and it can be, I want to lose 30 pounds. 30 pounds is daunting when you look at that at the beginning, at the start line, at the starting line. 30 pounds is heavy. So you're looking, how do I want to lose that? Stop focusing on the 30. So the first thing that you need to focus on is the 5. My goal is I want to lose 5 pounds in 2 months. Okay, cool. That feels a little bit more manageable. Then after that, I want to lose the next 5 in 5 months or in 2 months. And I want to lose the next. Work your way up to the 30. And I think where we go wrong when it comes to problem solving or goal setting really is that we're looking at the end result so much. And let's try to break that down into achievable milestones that will ultimately get us to the end. So my
Yeah.
best advice for women is to keep that goal in mind. Let us know where the finish line is, but let's figure out let's get to halftime. Let's get to the first quarter and let's focus on those goals too. So just start.
Yeah. Just start, just do it. Yeah. Like when you're talking about motherhood, and then you say when you start, when you have your baby, you don't know what it is to be a mother of a teen or an adult. And this is something that we are, especially the perfectionists among us, we just want to know everything beforehand. And so sometimes we procrastinate or we just avoid things because we don't know yet how to do it. And I think it's so important. And the example of motherhood is so beautiful because we don't know. It is about doing and becoming. We do not have to have all the answers. We do not have to have all the what's in house. It's just the idea of motherhood and the dream of becoming a mother that is in the end also strong enough in order for us to just do that and then work it out while we are in it and find our resources, build our community of support to help us and just to do that. And I believe if we can do that in motherhood, we can do that in in any venture or in any activity or in any dream that we want to manifest or achieve. I love that. Just do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And even outside of, I use motherhood as a good example, but you can think about that. I I still don't feel like I'm an expert in motherhood, right? I have my daughter and then I have my son 3 years later, and they're completely different. What worked for
Mhm.
her when it came to bottle feeding or nursing did not work for him. And what is working for her now as a 12-year-old probably won't work for my son when he becomes a 12-year-old. And even if you want to look at that for careers. So our generations are changing in our workforce. And how I was as a supervisor when I first started to that generation to how I am as a supervisor now, working with the next, it's not working all the time. Like I'm having to constantly change, I'm constantly adapt. But the experiences that I do have from my past will make it appear to be less daunting. And I think as people, not only just women, we have to find comfort in the I don't know. We have to find comfort in trying to ask for help and looking for additional resources and not needing to be the expert. Just because you're the expert doesn't necessarily mean you have to be the smartest person in the room. Everybody has space for learning and achieving and getting better.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you reinvent yourself often enough, then you can have this trust that you will be able to reinvent yourself next time. And
Mhm.
once again, your concept of just do it is very powerful. But I believe you have another concept, and that's change your shoes.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you
So
tell a little bit more about that, Tadara?
Sure. So Change Your Shoes came about primarily because I kept hearing a lot about we wear different hats. And I heard that a lot in the workforce. Oh, you wear different hats, you wear multiple hats. And that got me to the concept of shoes. I feel I wanted it to resonate with women. It resonates to a bunch of people, but I was like, let's change our shoes. And I was able to actually walk through my professional journey through shoes. And I start out by talking about heels. So when I first started my career, I was, I think, 22. And I was young compared to not only the students that I served, but the colleagues that I worked with. And I just didn't feel professional. I felt like I was a kid playing house, basically. Like I just didn't feel like a grown up. So I wanted myself to feel more in the role. So I would dress up every day. I would wear makeup. I was wearing heels. I was doing everything to try to make myself feel like I belonged. And when it was all said and done, it still didn't work. I still had people mistaking me for a student. I still had to clarify that I deserved to be there in my worth. So heels are painful, they're beautiful, but they hurt. I felt like in that journey, I was learning more so about the difference between perception and a reality and having to sit in that reality. Then I changed my shoes. And in this presentation, I'm changing my shoes throughout this speech when I talk through it. I changed my shoes to flats. And so with the flats, I talk about I'm no longer wearing heels at this moment because I became pregnant with my daughter and it was too much to wear heels. It was too much to put on makeup every day and to fall into this wannabe role or perception of what professionalism was. So I had to be comfortable in where I was. I had to adapt. So that is where I talk about the flats. I changed my shoes again, and then I changed into tennis shoes. So now I am a working mother and I'm going all over the place. And I feel as if a new professional, you say yes to so many opportunities. You can't wait to sit at the table. After a while, I was realizing I was saying yes to opportunities that I did not need to say yes to. I wasn't growing in these spaces. I was being more so of the giver. And at sometimes that's okay, but a lot of times when you say yes to opportunities, you just push back an opportunity for somebody else who maybe needed to be that at that table or is their time to be at that table. So that's where I provide tips on how to say yes to things, what to say no to, and to go through that. And that goes back to that alignment with values. I changed my
Absolutely.
yeah, I changed my shoes again and I changed into house shoes. So with house shoes, I talk about expectations, and that goes into becoming what someone else expects of you. And if you're going to somebody else's expectations of you versus your expectations of you, the person that you're going to end up letting down is not the other person, it's going to be you. So you need to make sure that you are meeting your expectations first and you're aligned with you before you try to meet the expectations of somebody else because it's going to continue to fluctuate. You'll feel down about yourself. After that, I go barefoot. And with barefoot, I talk about failure and transparency. And through that, I talk about the journey of trying to publish a book and how I received representation, then lost representation, and how I had to bounce back through that. So I talk about failure. Then I change into flip-flops. And with that one, I address self-care. And with self-care, I feel as if it is a buzzword, but with it, we are taking self out of self-care a lot. We are listening to how other people are telling us how we need to take care of ourselves rather than listening to our own bodies and how we need to take care of ourselves. Our bodies are going to tell us when something is wrong and something is off, and we need to listen to figure out how to fix that for ourselves. So I will have other individuals tell me that self-care needs to be turning your phone off for an hour a day. That may work for you. That may drive me completely bonkers and does not work for me. So I can't do your self-care for myself. So I talk about that.
Mm.
And then I end the presentation or the speech with boots. And I talk about navigating through the storm. I talk about planning for succession planning. We are all replaceable. You just need to make sure that it takes more than one person to replace you. So I go through that process when it comes down to preparing for how to ride through the storm.
Wow. It is amazing. Women are, I would say, anecdotally known for having a lot of shoes. And the fact that you tie different types of shoes or footwear to how we show up or how we present ourselves or perceive ourselves or experience ourselves, that's extremely powerful, and it's absolutely something for many of us to think of. And if you have these metaphors, these different shoes, they're like anchors to see, am I on flip-flops too much, or am I on the house shoes, in the house shoes too much? What am I wearing? Because we are not aware of many of the settings that we are in, because we are in this rat race, and a lot of us are very often, or not to say most of the time, in fight or flight,
Mhm.
not aware of what are we doing and why are we doing this, and is this still serving us? And there's nothing wrong with wearing house shoes, isn't it? And there's nothing wrong with changing our shoes if we understand the setting and the context that we are in, and then be very intentional about the shoes that we're wearing or about the behavior that we are manifesting and the actions that we are taking, and how to manifest navigate through so many different elements in our life that can change like overnight or sometimes even in a minute. It is so important to be self-aware about that.
Definitely.
And yeah, thank you for that change your shoes metaphor. It's very powerful. I like it. Yeah. I like it. Yeah. Now, a lot of us feel stuck, right? We feel stuck on the high heels, or we feel stuck in we never feel stuck in the flip-flops, but can feel stuck in the boots or on the high heels or in the house shoes. So, how to build that courage and plan of action to change shoes, basically.
Sometimes, to be honest, I don't think we intentionally know when to change it. I think that
Mhm.
life forces us to change it. If the water's too high, you can't keep wearing flip-flops. You're gonna get wet. But you're gonna have to know that it's time to put on some boots. It's time to pull it up, and you got to keep going. So I think that life forces us to change shoes. I don't know if I ever would have gotten out of I won't say I won't ever. I feel like I got out of the heels stage faster because I did have my daughter, and I realized that it was uncomfortable for me. So at the beginning, I said heels are uncomfortable. I think they are. I think they're beautiful. I think they can provide a lot of benefits and enhancements. However, and I was fine walking through that pain, right? I was fine going through that journey, but it was just me. It wasn't impacting my body at all. But as I got further along in my pregnancy, I was walking slower. I had a whole nother person that I was carrying. I was wobbling. It was too much. So I had to listen in order for me to continue to be successful in whatever that was, just being Tradara. I realized that, oh, I got to change my shoes. Like heels is no longer working for me at all. It's time to wear some flats. It's time to even like for me, my feet grew. So the same size that I was wearing wasn't even working anymore. My whole body changed. So I had to learn how to navigate that. So I think life forces us into making those changes. If we don't do it ourselves, it's going to happen to you. I remember, I think my mom used to tell me that if I don't sit down somewhere at some point, my body's going to sit me down for me. So it's making sure that you are listening to that because you don't want to be sat down for you. Like you don't want life to push you down. But if you're somebody who doesn't listen, it's gonna knock you down and it'll make you change your shoes at some point anyway.
Absolutely. So that everybody that knows me also knows my views on work-life balance as a term. What's your opinion about that, or what's your view on balance?
I don't think balance exists. And the best way that I can say that I don't think it exists is because stand up on one foot and then try to do something, right? I do this in my talk, actually. I have the audience that are able, I tell them to stand up on one foot and I continue to do my speech. And then I will say, okay, now switch feet. And then I'll continue to do my speech. And then I ask the audience, okay, what did I say? And majority of them don't remember. And I'll ask, why don't you remember what I said? And a few will say, I was focused on not falling. I was holding on to something. I was doing everything. Exactly. Because that's how it is trying to do work-life balance. You're holding on to everything, trying to keep yourself steady. So that's hard. The next example that I will often do is I imagine a scale. So a scale, the only way for something to truly be balanced means that it has to have equal weight. My work helps me live a life that I desire, but they don't weigh equally. They are in partnership together. So that is why I don't believe that it exists. You can't, some people may, but to me, there's no way that work and our life have the same percentage in our lives as importance.
Yeah. So, what's your advice for so many of us that are struggling in finding this harmony or integration because they focus so much on, like you say, on the balance, on the plus and the min and the minus? So, what's your advice there? How can they look at it in a different way?
Don't focus on balance because you can't. I feel like balance is impossible to achieve. Just even that would be my advice. Getting a scale, just literally get a scale, put your equal weight of the whatever item you want in it, and see how long that scale stands still. It will
Mm,
move. I promise you it's gonna move. And if it is still, it's not gonna stay still for long. Giving ourselves grace and knowing that we're trying to do something that is so difficult. And at times we may feel balanced, but it's going to knock us right back off. And just don't come so hard on yourself. So I think we all need to give each other grace. I believe we need to give ourselves grace and see how much we can just integrate that flexibility into our lives as much as possible. Where our struggle, I think, is going to happen is a lot of workforces I don't believe are conducive to people trying to achieve a certain level of balance. So I think that's going to be a challenge and understanding that it may not, like, I don't know, balancing it's not 50-50. And I think that's
yeah,
just really hard to say that something is 50-50. Our life may be 70-30. It may be 70-15-15. Like it's just hard. So we
exactly.
need to give ourselves that grace and stop trying to achieve something that is not sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to talk in terms of integration without putting numbers on it, but just
Yeah.
also be in a fluid and a flow in terms of what is happening. Because one day is not another day, one year is not just another year. There's so many things evolving and growing. And something that we are also struggling with, similar to balance, is you mentioned values. And first of all, I know a lot of us that don't really think about values. And I mean, it's there as a concept, but it's not in terms of, okay, these are my like top five values. And for me, these values mean, A, B, C, D, E. And this is how I feel that I live my values. So many of us don't even know that. And I think it is a very important exercise to do that and even revisit those values because they can evolve depending on major life changing events. But also, what we have is conflicting values. There's a lot of women that I work with, or friends or family, that tell me, I want to be perfect mother, and this is how I look at that. And the adjective is perfect already is, of course, a source of a lot of struggle. And at the same time, I want to be a professional. And so there's two values there, or there's values in my personal life and in my professional life that are like conflicting. So conflicting values are a cause of energy drain and a lot of internal struggle. So how do you solve those? Do you have them?
Not like I used to. At the beginning, I believe I had it just because I wasn't at peace or even understanding of what my values were. Now
Mm,
that I know what they are, it's a lot easier. It's a whole lot easier. It's not completely easy, like it's not simple, but it is easier. Some difficult conversations just happen. Like I have had where, like, for example, I did have a situation where I accepted an opportunity to go speak. And then shortly after, I realized that I had a family engagement at the same time. And I was conflicted because family is a value of mine. That's something that I hold true. That's something that if I can, I will, like I said, pass up on an engagement or an endeavor in order to make sure I'm here from that side. But then I didn't know that this part was going to come. I didn't know it was going to fall. So I try to do as much as I can do to go hold true to that value. So I asked, hey, can my speaking time get changed? I started to look at flights to figure out if there's a way that I can get back sooner or whatever there can be. But then I also tried to say, if this is just not going to happen, it wasn't because of a lack of trying. It wasn't because I didn't ask. So I'm starting to find more value in opening my mouth and advocating for myself instead of saying, I'm just going to let it ride. I'm going to ask first if something can do to help me go back into alignment. And then if it's not, I just got to figure out what I can't control because I can only, in theory, control Tradara. There are a lot of things else that I can't control in that. So I'm starting to make peace with the only thing I have control over is me.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that story to that, I also hear an element of both and, because a lot of us think very often in the terms of either or. It's like we have to choose. And sometimes with some creativity or with additional resources, we can combine things at a certain level. And it is about also being open for possibilities and access or creative strengths in order to see if we cannot change things in a way that we can combine things so that we can stack things or whatever. I think that's, especially as women, we are creators, we are creative. That is something that is very often underutilized as a skill or a gift, right?
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, beautiful. Dara, what would be like your what's the best piece of advice that you ever received and that you would like to share with our audience of female leaders that are looking for sponsorship and support and ideas to create a life that they really want to live, to create life by design?
Understanding that design is fluid. I think that we bind ourselves and box ourselves in by not allowing ourselves to do things that didn't go according to our plan. And there is, it's okay to have a plan, but we need to make sure that it's not stifling us. And the best example I can say is even myself. Oh, I want to be here in my career by a certain age. I want to have a family by a certain age. I want to be married at a certain age. I want to have this many kids by a certain age. And then when that plan doesn't come to pass in the time that we wanted it to go, I think a lot of us don't know how to handle that. We start to say, what did I do wrong? Or I made mistakes, or it's never going to happen now. And all of that goes where we can no longer focus because we are so constricted and confined by that plan. That was me. I can say that was me. I was like, man, at 40, I was going to do this. At 30, I'm going to do this. And then I'm like, oh, okay, it didn't happen. Why didn't that happen? What did I do wrong? How can I make up for it? So I'm trying to work on that myself. And one thing that I started to combat is the weather taught me this, honestly. Storms fear. I'm afraid of storms. I don't even like tornadoes. I like nothing about a storm. But then I realized that the next day, even though it can be a destructive aftermath, is the sun comes back out typically the next day. Like you don't stand in that dreary point of your life forever. And therapy helped me see that. And I wanted to help others see that who are nervous about therapy because they view it as weakness. I created it's a puzzle journal. So it's called One Piece at a Time. And with that, it has different prompts for kids, even the youngest 8, to go through, and they color this puzzle piece about what's going on with their day. And they do it for about 2 months. And then after it's over, they have a frame of a completed puzzle that shows their life for 2 months. And it shows the good days and the bad days. And at the end of it, they still are able to see this beautiful, completed masterpiece. That bad day that was in there, look at the completed picture. And sometimes we focus so much on that one piece, and that doesn't even, it stifles us from moving forward. So that will be the advice that I look at everybody is, so don't look at that no as rejection. Look at that no as a redirection. Don't look at no's always as it's never going to happen. It may be not yet for you. It's not the time. Just don't let your plan for your life box you in and take you out of opportunities that are there that you just are afraid to step in or don't even know exist.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful. What I noticed, Sudara, is that you are a storyteller and you have this capacity to use metaphors and stories in order to visualize concepts. And I really love this concept of a puzzle. I can just see it before me as this masterpiece of color and shapes and things that is basically the result of a process, of a journey, of a path that somebody goes where not every day is the same. And it's such a beautiful result. I can only imagine how this also must, if you can just do this and then you can put it somewhere, it's like a constant reminder
Yep.
of what life is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is like a complete set of puzzle pieces that are in a certain form depending on what happens and how we look at it and then how we process and transform it into something very concrete with this puzzle. It's beautiful. It's
Thank
beautiful
you.
because, like you say, when there's a storm or a tornado, afterwards the air clears, right? And I experienced that myself lately because we have very bad weather here in the south of Spain. And it was for a couple of days. And the next day it was a sunny morning. And I went outside with the dog and I heard the birds sing and be happy and be busy. And I was thinking, first of all, where did these poor birds find
Oh.
shelter for 3 days of extreme rain? And how can they, if they see the sun, immediately be in this different mindset? I think that's something that we can learn because if we were in that storm, the next couple of weeks, we are talking about that storm and how bad
Mhm.
it was and how dangerous it was and how uncomfortable it made us feel.
Yep.
Instead of saying, today is a beautiful day, today is a great day, today it's full of opportunities and possibilities, let's just do that and not stick in that again, in that limbic brain where we are in fight or flight or paralysis
Mhm.
because of what has happened and what could have happened and didn't happen. So living in the present and build your puzzle is a beautiful way to look at life. And it's also a beautiful thing to close our conversation. So thank you so much, Tradara, for being here with us and for sharing your wisdom and your views. There were a lot of golden nuggets here for our audience and for everybody listening. There will be all the links to connect with Tradara and to her children's books, all the other things that she's powerfully and genuinely doing. You will be able to find all the information in the show notes of this episode. And I hope that you found inspiration and encouragement to do the things and to show up and to change your shoes and to build your puzzle. Thank you so much for being here today. It was an honor to be here with you. Take
Thank you
care.
for having me. You too.
Bye.
Bye.